All right, ladies, today I want to get into owning our voice, being able to speak up for ourselves and own our truth because that's challenging for many of us to do. And I really wanted to touch on this topic because all of us want to be heard and we have the right to be heard. But unfortunately, sometimes in our attempts in speaking up for ourselves and owning our truth, our message is not always conveyed well. We can play our words out in our minds and be as cautious as possible. And then when we go to articulate our message, it just doesn't come out the way we played it out in our minds. And sometimes our message is not received well. Sometimes what we have to say is taken out of context, is misunderstood. And there's other times in our vulnerable moments where we're judged for what we have to say, for owning our truth. And that can make it difficult for us in the future to speak up for ourselves as well. Sometimes our upbringing and our background can make it challenging for us to speak up for ourselves and own our truth. For instance, let's say in your family household, it was considered as a sign of disrespect or a sign that you were challenging your parents if you spoke up for yourself and owned your truth. That would keep you from being able to do so in your future relationships because it transcends, right? And I know that was the case in my upbringing. One, it was more so generational because of the time that my parents grew up in. And they grew up in a time where children were seen and not heard, and that was considered respectful. And so when I would vocalize myself and share my opinions on something, my thoughts on something, or my disagreement on something, or just simply share my truth, I was immediately shut down and told that I was being disrespectful. And there were times where I shared my truth, it wasn't received well, and I was judged because of it. So I spent a lot of time being silent and being afraid to speak up for myself, but not placing any blame on them because that they gave me what they had and it was based on their upbringing as well. Now, other times it's challenging for us to speak up for ourselves and own our truth because of fear. Just simply because of fear, because we fear what others may think of us, think about what we have to say, fear of being judged or misjudged or completely misinterpreted. And if we've had experiences like that where someone has judged us or where someone has broken our trust and disclosed what we shared with them to other people, then that would keep us from speaking up for ourselves and sharing our truth in the future as well. But it's so important that we do speak up for ourselves and own our truth because that is where our most authentic voice lies. That is going to help to build our confidence. That is going to help us to navigate through relationships better. And that is also going to help us to be able to determine which relationships that we may have to cut off or place some boundaries around or distance ourselves from. Okay. And so for today, I want to get into some of the reasons why we struggle to speak up for ourselves and own our truth, why it's important that we do so, and how we can do it as well. Okay. And then I also want to get into some of the consequences for us speaking up for ourselves and owning our truth and what we can do about those things. Oh, all right. All right. Now, just a quick backdrop on my own story with struggling to speak up for myself and own my truth. I was I always was someone that just naturally wanted to speak my mind. I don't know if it makes sense, but it just came very naturally to want to speak my mind, to own my truth, but I wasn't always met with a welcoming reaction from people. Again, going back to what I said about my parents, it was definitely generational and in some ways cultural as well. And so me being comfortable and able to speak up for myself and own my truth was not the family dynamic that I had. Later on in life, when I got into relationships, there were times where I would vocalize myself because, like I said, there was something in me that just felt the need to speak up for myself and to own my truth. But there were several instances where I was met with pushback. Someone criticized me. There were times where people made fun of me. They put me down and belittled me. And there were other times where people just saw it as a sign of complete defiance because of their authority. And I'm more so speaking of in relationships. I know with my first husband, that's definitely how it was taken. It was just like he was the man of the house, and how dare I, display any signs of discontent or disagreement with certain things. And so, yeah, although I had this natural desire to speak up for myself and to own my truth, I went through a period where I just got silent because of all of the experience that was unfavorable uh, that happened to me. It just made me go into a period of silence. And I just felt like it would be better to be silent and to let people think what they want to think because they're going to think what they want to think anyway. I just felt that it was better to sit in my feelings and just wrestle with it and deal with it and just hope that it would go away. But I found myself feeling worse than when I would actually speak up for myself. And I'm going to get into more of that later. And when after I turned 40, I had been on this healing journey, but after I turned 40, I was really unhappy. And I'm not saying I'm 40 now, I'm 44 now, but just after I turned 40, I found myself feeling so unhappy. And 40 is a huge milestone, right? But one of the things that I realized was making me so unhappy is because my truest authentic voice was trapped. And I wanted to be heard. I wanted to be heard. So I went on this journey of getting back to the core of me and learning how to speak up for myself. And on this journey, it was so groundbreaking because the one thing that kept coming up to me, and I hope that it really resonates with you, is this. I told myself, I said, I have the right to be heard, and I have something to say. You have the right to be heard, and you have something to say. Okay? So now let's get into this. All right. One of the reasons why we struggle to speak up for ourselves and own our truth is because our identity is tied into what others want us or taught us to be. So, if we were taught that it was disrespectful or considered as a challenge to speak up for ourselves or own our truth, then that's what our identity is tied into. If we were in a relationship or are in a relationship where someone feels like that us speaking our truth, whether we may be disagreeing with them, maybe we're just letting them know that we have some discontent with something, that we don't really approve of something or like something. If they consider it as a challenge, then that would make it very difficult for us to speak up for ourselves and own our truth as well. And that's where our identity would be tied into, because we can start to feel like, okay, let me be quiet so that way I can get along with this person. So now we're dimming in the light. So now we're dimming our light. We're hiding in the shadows. We're people pleasing. We're going along to get along. Okay. It's so important that we detach our voice from what people think we should be or believe we should be. And one of the ways that we can detach and get back to our own identity so we can speak up for ourselves and own our truth is through first working on discovering who you are. That's something that I learned. And it's pretty much like going back to ground zero, going back to square one, going back to the basics of it all is who are you? What are your likes? What are your dislikes? What do you stand for? What are you against? What are your non negotiables? What are your truest beliefs and your values? Because all of that is tied into your voice. And when we know those things about ourselves, then we become more unwilling to budge or to yield or to derail from speaking up for ourselves and owning our truth because we know that we have the right to be heard and we have something to say. And our identity is no longer tied into the people pleasing. It's no longer tied into the going along to get along. It's no longer tied into who this person wants us to be. So that way we can get along with this person or this person can accept us, approve us and get along with us. No, it's standing fully in who we are and coming to love who we are and coming to love our voice, coming to love our truth. So that way we can speak up for ourselves. All right. And yes, does this come with consequences? It absolutely does. But again, we're going to get into that a little later. Okay. All right. The second reason we struggle to speak up for ourselves and own our truth is because the person that we're speaking to considers it a sign of disrespect because of their position, their title, or their status. Now, this can happen in a work environment. That has definitely happened to me where I had a boss and I went in there one time to express my discontent with something, and they completely shut me down. And they let me know that I was here for X, Y, and Z, and that my opinion didn't matter. And that blew my mind. I was taken back by that. And I walked away like a dog with their tail between their legs because I had never had that happen to me before. So I didn't know how to handle that situation. But when I was going through this journey of being able to speak up for myself, well, learning how to do so and owning my truth, I remember that instance, which I was so glad that I recalled that because it was so interesting. It was like, it's so interesting when you see people that feel like because of their position, their title, or their status, that gives them the right to shut you down, to silence you. And it's really taking advantage of their position of authority, whatever that may be. And now I know how to navigate through that if something like that happens, but I'm just giving you that as an example. Um, Also, if we are in a relationship and the person feels like because they are the sole provider, that they're the man of the house, that what they say goes and nobody else's opinions matter, that can keep us in a state of silence. That can keep our voice trapped. And it's this feeling of feeling choked because you know you have something to say, you know you have the right to be heard, but this person has already made it very clear that this isn't the type of environment that we're going to have. I've met women who were married to partners that made it very clear to them that because they were the provider and they took care of them, the wife and the kids financially, and they were the breadwinner. And maybe, and in some aspects too, it was because of their background, because of what they were taught, that nobody else's opinion matter, and they didn't want to hear nobody else's opinions or thoughts or anything on a matter. And these women were very unhappy, okay? And so that's something that else that keeps our voice trapped. And also, again, going back to what I said about our family dynamic, and if our parents considers that to be disrespectful, or just somebody else in our family, then we're silent as well. Something that I discovered, though, is this, is that people's title, position, or status in our lives does not entitle them to our silence. I'm going to say that again. People's title, position, and status in our lives does not entitle them to our silence. It does not. Unfortunately, with a lot of those circumstances that some of us have found ourselves in, or other women have found themselves in, where someone feels like because of their position, title, or status that it entitles them to our silence, we carry on out of fear, because maybe we're fearful of stepping out on our own, starting over, the fear of the unknown, wondering, okay, well, what's going to happen if I do speak up for myself? And maybe we do know, maybe it's been made clear to us that if we do speak up for ourselves and own our truth, that these are the consequences. And so we're afraid of it. And again, I don't know your story. So I can't tell you what to do, but I will definitely provide some suggestions towards the end of this. But I cannot emphasize enough that it does not entitle them to our silence. You have something to say, and you have the right to be heard. I have something to say, and I have the right to be heard. Okay? All right. The next thing that can keep us from speaking up for ourselves and owning our truth is fear of being judged or misunderstood. And this happens. I haven't met one person that didn't share how they felt about something, or in them speaking up for themselves or owning their truth, that they were misunderstood or judged. And that's so difficult. It's because sometimes we can find ourselves spiraling down this rabbit hole of trying to explain ourselves, trying to clarify. And that just can end up making us feel worse, and sometimes even make the situation worse. There are some people that are simply just bent on misunderstanding us, that are simply bent on judging us or misjudging us. And that's what it is. And that's something that I had to learn. And when I learned that, that really helped me to still speak up for myself and own my truth, but be able to just walk away. Just be able to walk away knowing that, hey, if this is the way you want to interpret what I have to say, if this is your understanding of it, or you are coming out of this judging me this way, what can I do about that? Nothing. There's nothing we can do about that. The only thing that we can do something about is if someone gives us the opportunity to clarify, if they're truly interested and they really want to understand what it is we're saying, what we meant by something, because they genuinely care for us and genuinely care about what we have to say and care about our voice. That's the only time. But if there's people, like I said, they are just bent on judging us or misunderstanding us, there is nothing we can do about that. So it makes no sense for us to drive ourselves crazy over it, and definitely to make us fearful of speaking up for ourselves and owning our truth in the future, or keep us from doing so. Okay. All right. The next thing that can also have us um, make it challenging for us to speak up for ourselves and own our truth is if we've been led to believe that our voice doesn't matter. Going back similarly to what I was saying earlier, if that was the dynamic that was created for us, even in friendships, sometimes in our so called friendships, certain people can make us feel like our voice doesn't matter. And that's why I said that earlier when I opened this topic up, that it's important for us to continue to speak up for ourselves and own our truth because this helps to decipher who deserves to be in our life. And if we are in a so called friendship where someone is making us feel like our voice doesn't matter, that's not a friendship. That's a one sided friendship. I've had those as well where I would hear someone out, and then as soon as I wanted to express myself or share my opinion or my thoughts on something, I was completely shut down. And this actually happened not too long ago. I was speaking to someone, and this person has called me on numerous occasions and talked to me about several different things, and I've listened to them. And um, it's not, how can I say? I'm just that type of friend, okay? And I value friendship. And it's not to toot my horn or to brag on myself. It's just to simply say that I know what type of friend that I am and that I've been to this person. And one day I was venting to this person about something, and they misjudged me. So feeling like, because again, we're supposed to be friends, so I tried to clarify, right? And this person completely dismissed what I had to say. And although it hurt, I was so grateful that that moment happened, that experience happened, because I realized that my voice doesn't matter to this person. Because if it did, they would fully hear me out. They would welcome and embrace what I have to say, right? Because I wasn't attacking them. I wasn't putting them down. They just simply misjudged something from a past experience that I had. And I just simply wanted to clarify because um we were on a topic around that, all right? And I wasn't given the opportunity to do so. I mean, and this person really expressed like they weren't wanting to hear it and move on. And I just thought to myself, wow, how unkind, how unkind. And am I going to let that experience discourage me from speaking up in the future and owning my truth? Absolutely not. I am grateful, simply grateful that it happened because now I know what parameters to place around that relationship. I'm not saying that I'm completely cutting off that person, but I am saying that I have placed parameters around that relationship. And moving forward, I'm no longer offering myself in the same way, and I have the right to do so. And that's something that's helpful for you as well in navigating these friendships or different relationships is once you see that your voice doesn't matter, again, there's nothing we can do about their reaction towards us or their actions towards us, but there's definitely something we can do about how we navigate those relationships and friendships moving forward. And you absolutely have the right to disconnect. You absolutely have the right to choose, okay, instead of me completely cutting off this relationship or friendship, I'm just going to place some parameters around it, some boundaries around it, and protect your own emotional and mental state moving forward. You have the right to do so. And I suggest that you do so. All right, now I want to get into why it's important for us to speak up for ourselves and own our truth. Now, the reasons I listed earlier about why we may struggle to speak up for ourselves and own our truth, that's just a few of the reasons, but there's so many other reasons, okay? I don't know your story, but this is just to give you a brief idea. And anything that I share on this platform is simply information, okay? All right. So, again, going back to why it's important for us to speak up for ourselves and own our truth. One, because we have better mental and emotional health because of it. Going back to what I was saying earlier, when I went through that period of silence, it caused me so much like emotional and mental distress because I I wasn't being true to myself. I was actually betraying myself because there were so many truths that I had and opinions that I had and thoughts that I had that I needed to share, that I should have shared. And if only I had shared it and vocalized it, I would have felt so much better in spite of someone's reaction towards it or how someone may have taken it. And it really took a toll on me mentally and emotionally. It really, really did. And when I finally made a resolve that, hey, I have the right to be heard, I have something to say, and I'm going to say it. I am going to say it, no matter what someone's reaction is, no matter what the outcome is, I'm going to say it. And I will know after saying it what to do then, right? And that's simply it. And so when I weighted both side by side, okay, being silent or speaking up for myself, and I um reflected on past experiences where I did speak up for myself and I didn't have the best outcomes because of it, I still felt better than I did not speaking up for myself, even if some of those occasions it was just by a small percentage, but it was better than me holding all of that in. And once I started vocalizing myself and owning my truth and speaking up for myself, and um in that learning how to navigate through those tough conversations, through the unfavorable feedback or responses, I I felt truer to myself. I felt so much truer to myself. It was a great act of self-love towards myself, and I didn't have that weight on me of feeling regretful because it was like, if only I said this, or if only I would have came back with this, or only I would have stood up for myself and said this, or whatever it may be. Was n- I was not going to keep having that regret eat me up inside. I wasn't going to do it. Um, and so, yeah, it helps build our confidence up. It helps to decipher if these connections, relationships are even worth still having. And it helps us to know what type of boundaries we need to establish with some of these people, even in our relationships, like our family dynamics. Um, my father has passed away, but with my mom, and I'm very careful when I speak about certain family members because I don't ever want to say anything that would indefinitely sever our relationship. But I know one of the challenges in my relationship with my mom has been me being able to speak up for myself and own my truth. And you know, I always yearned for her approval, and I always yearned for a relationship with her. But I got to a place in my life where I said, you know what? I can't keep sacrificing my truest self, my voice, just to have her approval, just to have her acceptance. She doesn't even live that way for nobody. And I I just couldn't do it. So right now, our relationship is at a pause, and I don't believe it's an indefinite pause, but it is at a pause. And I have, in spite of some of the hurt and the pain that has come from me putting this relationship between us on pause, I have such a healthier state of wholeness when it comes to my mindset and my emotions because I know now I'm living truest to me. And I'm okay if other people don't like it or agree with it or accept it. It's okay. They have that right not to, right? But I have the right to be me and to own my voice and speak my truth. And the same thing goes for you. And so, when it comes to family dynamics and relationships, that's tricky. I can't tell you what to do in your own, but I know for me, it was a risk that I was willing to take. And my mental and emotional health is better because of the risk I took. Because when I was holding it all in and I was people pleasing and going along to get along, I was um, I was sad. Just simply put, I was really sad because again, I wasn't being truest to myself. I was betraying myself. All right. Um, Another reason why it's important for us to speak up for ourselves and own our truth is because people will be clear on where we stand and who we are. So when we know who we are, when we know what we stand for, our likes, our dislikes, our non negotiables, when we know our beliefs, our values, in spite of the differences uh, in them in comparison to someone else, when we know these things and we own them in our voice and we speak up for ourselves when it comes to these things and we own our truth in all of this, people know exactly where we stand. And people will know exactly who you are. And this cuts out a lot of confusion. I'm not going to say there still isn't going to be confusion or even pushback, but it cuts out a lot of it because I speak up for myself and I own my truth in regards to those things, my beliefs, my values, my morals, and my likes, my dislikes, my non-negotiables, and my opinions and my thoughts, whatever it might be, because I own those things so confidently now. And uh, when I do have encounters with people, especially new encounters with people, they know exactly what to expect out of me because they know, like, hey, this is Patrice, this is who she is, this is what she's going for, this is what she ain't going for. And yeah, so don't try me, right? Okay. And so that's why it's so important that we do speak up for ourselves and own our truth. I know it's hard to do so, especially when we're we're different, in what we feel, what we believe, and um, in all of those aspects. I know it can be challenging in current relationships and future relationships. But I would rather build authentic relationships with people that, in spite of our differences, they look past it and they can just focus at the core of who I really am. And that even though they may not agree with it or it's different from how they are, they respect it. Those are the type of relationships I would rather have. And I would like to think that's the type of relationships many of us would rather have. And so, yeah, speak up for yourself, own your truth. Um, just know that everybody is not going to like it or agree with it, but there are going to be people that will respect it. That will absolutely respect it because at least in their minds, there's no guessing. They know that you are bringing your truest and most authentic self, and so there's limited surprises, I guess you could say. But I've learned that people respect that. I know I even respect that out of people. I don't, my relationships, partnerships, connections that I have, we don't all share the same. beliefs and likes and dislikes and uh, opinions on certain things. But that doesn't make me treat them any differently. That doesn't make me look at them from an unfavorable perspective. If anything, I appreciate that they share that with me, that they're bringing them and their truest, authentic self and voice to the table. And I'm clear as to where they stand. So it's the line has been drawn, and I know not to cross that line with them. And I respect that. I would rather know that, right? So that's one of the other benefits. Another reason why it's important for us to speak up for ourselves and own our truth is because, as I mentioned before, it builds our confidence. Um, the more you do it, you will become more comfortable in doing so and more bolder in doing so and more confident in doing so. And the confidence really comes from you connecting with you and honoring you. You're honoring your voice, that inner you that's saying, hey, I have the right to be heard and I have something to say. So let me speak, and speak my truth. It's a huge confidence builder. It really is, because when I was silent and oh my gosh, and you know, dimming in the shadows and going along to get along and people pleasing and just holding all of that in, I was so unconfident. Now, I'm not saying that was the only thing that affected my confidence, but that played a made a huge role in it. And I just feel like I was betraying myself. And there were times I didn't even recognize myself. And I learned in me building my confidence up and healing that I had to speak my truth. I had to own my voice. I had to speak up for myself, even in spite of how tough or challenging it may be. I had to do it. And the more I did it, and the more, when we're going to get into what to do, like how to do it, the more I implemented these different tools that I learned, the more it became comfortable in me doing so. And it really built my confidence. And I've seen the difference that it's had in my business relationships, how it's just so different. It's like before, when I would have consultations with clients, I would kind of be timid a little bit. I don't know, like I said, it just transcends into everything else. And as I worked on it and just really just speaking up for myself, owning my truth and owning my voice, I mean, now I get on the phone with new clients, possible partnerships, and I am like, boom, boom, boom. And I'm speaking more confidence, like my voice is stronger. And people can hear that. People can hear that, and people respect that. People really do respect that. It makes a difference. So it's a huge confidence builder. So if you have been in a state of silence, or if you struggle to speak up for yourselves, and own your truth, I so encourage you to keep doing so, and it will help to build your confidence. And we're going to get into how to do it, okay? The next reason why it's important for us to do so is because you're being true to yourself. Going back to what I said, it's really betraying yourself when you don't do so. Um, Gosh, I feel like all of us have had different experiences or instances where we betrayed ourselves. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to do it no more. And that's been a part of my journey, is just getting to just a deep sense of healing so I don't betray myself anymore. There is a voice inside all of us that we have been blessed with. We've been blessed with it. Some people may not see it as a blessing, but it's absolutely a blessing. And I've learned that with some people, the reason why it's off-putting for us to speak up for ourselves and own our truth is simply because it's intimidating. It's intimidating, and also because they don't know how to do it. And so when they see people who do it, it's off-putting to them because it's almost like, wow, who are you to do so? Who are you to feel so comfortable doing so? Or again, they see it as intimidating. No, other people's problem with our voice is not our problem. A friend told me years ago, and it really took me a long time to really take this advice to heart. It really did. But she told me one day, she said, P, she calls me P. She said, P, other people's problem with you. No, she said, P, don't allow other people's problem with you to become your problem. And I'm going to give you that same advice. Don't allow other people's problem with you to become your problem. Don't do it. Okay? All right. And so be true to yourself and speak up for yourself. All right. Also, the next thing is you learn how to improve your communication style. I love this because there have been times where people have misunderstood me, but they given me the benefit of the doubt to clarify. And they came back and said, hey, Patrice, if I'm correct, I understood you as this, or this is what you meant by this, or Patrice, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can you clarify? And I so appreciated that. But in that, it wasn't one-sided. It wasn't just them seeking clarification and me appreciating that. It was me wanting to improve my communication skills because as I'm listening to them and hearing why they misunderstood something or took something out of context or received it the wrong way, it gave me insight as to how I could improve my communication with others. And so that's another way we can reframe our mindset around speaking up for ourselves and owning our truth when we don't get the response that we hope to get. But whether people are willing to hear us out or give us the benefit of doubt, it's a chance for us to improve ourselves. And all of us can always improve in every aspect of ourselves. Okay. Um, the next reason why it's important for us to speak up for ourselves and own our truth is because we know which relationships to let go of and what boundaries to set up. And I've, mentioned this already, but yeah, you know, people reveal who they are in these instances of us owning our truth and speaking up for ourselves. And I would rather know where someone stands with me. And I know most of us do. I believe all of us do. And in that allows us to know, okay, if this is a relationship worth keeping or do we have to put some boundaries around it? Okay. All right. So now how can we do it? How can we speak up for ourselves and own our truth? One is just have the tough conversations. It's just as simple as that. Um, Something I had to do was get out of my own way, was to stop having these negative thoughts play out in my mind. Like, what if this is the outcome? What if they take it like this? I can't, it was driving me crazy. We can't it's not beneficial to us to concern ourselves with those things. All right. Because, um, whatever happens, like again, if people are going to misunderstand us, take us out of context or judge us, that's not a us problem, and that's not even a direct reflection of us, even though we can always improve in our communication. That speaks volumes to their character, okay? So just simply have the tough conversation, prepare yourself. Something that I like to do is think about my words before I say it. But going back to what I said earlier, even in those instances, sometimes it's still not convey the way I played it out. But at least you know you made the effort, right? But the thing is you want to consider yourself in this instance, right? What is best for your mental and emotional health, right? What is best? And um when we hold in how we truly feel, that just makes it worse. That just hurts us. And yes, there are consequences in us speaking up for ourselves and owning our truth. But going back to what I said, when I measured the two side by side, the silence or me speaking up for myself and the consequences, I felt better speaking up for myself and dealing with the consequences than I did keeping in a state of silence. Okay. So, yeah, just have the tough conversation. Just have it. All right. The next thing is do your best not to offend, but don't make not offending your primary focus. And this is what I mean. You can prepare, you can go into it with the best intentions. You can know that you mean well by what you say, but this people are people. My mom used to say that all the time. People are people. And she's so right. You know, the older I get, oh gosh, I have a better understanding of that because people are going to misunderstand us. They are going to misjudge us or judge us. They are going to be dismissive. They are simply going to show us that they don't care what we have to say, right? But again, focus on the pros of that, those negative consequences. Focus on those pros. One, we know where people stand. Two, we know how people really feel about us. Three, we can improve our communication style. And four, we can get rid of some people who are not meant to be in our circle, or place some parameters or boundaries around it. Okay. And so those are the benefits that I like to focus on. So when I go into conversations, my intent is never to hurt, to be disrespectful, or to offend. But it's definitely not my primary focus anymore, because then what happens is our voice is still trapped because we're trying to be so extra careful in what we say and how we say it. No. I'm something that's been off-putting for people, and that's what silence my voice too, is because I'm just a direct person in my speaking. I am. It's not to offend, but I know some people can be taken back by that. I recently ended a partnership with someone, but I was very matter of fact and direct, and I wasn't disrespectful or anything, but I wasn't concerned about if this person was going to be offended or whatever the case may be, because my focus is me, and what's best for my mental and emotional state. And however someone takes me, I can't do anything about it unless they give me, the opportunity to do so. Then of course I'll try to do something about it, but I'm not going to focus on that either. Okay. All right. The next thing is and my family says this all the time, make your strong point and stick to your strong point. A lot of times we can derail. A lot of times it can go completely off topic. When I cut off that partnership, I made my strong point and I stuck to my strong point. They came back with something else. I made the strong point again, the same strong point I initially made, and I stuck to it. And I let them know that I wasn't going to go back and forth on the matter, that this was my point, and that's it. That's something you can do. When you find that the conversation is starting to derail or, go a different way, the way I've learned to take my platform back, to take my mic back, is by saying, I wasn't done talking. You didn't fully hear me. Please don't cut me off. I need you to hear what I have to say. And once I'm done speaking, I'm willing to hear what you have to say. The same respect I give to you, please give it to me. And in that, it's like it grasps somebody's their attention, especially when you say, hey, the same respect I give to you, please give to me. Or there's been times where I said, "Oh wow, so you don't respect my voice? I I thought you did." And then it puts the magnifying glass on that person and makes them think to themselves like, "Oh my gosh," and they self-correct. Oftentimes people do self-correct. So if you find that it's going that way, it's starting to escalate to something else, go off, derail off the topic, pull that back in. Pull that back in, but make sure you make your strong point and stick to it and leave it at that. Something else that you can do, the next thing to do is to prepare yourself going in that what you may have to say may not be received well, and it's okay. And know that you can't do anything about how somebody receives you, but you're going into it for your betterment, for the betterment of your mental and emotional health. Yes, we do want to consider people, be kind to people, but there are some things where we have to put ourselves first in the matter. And when you know you have something to say, you have the right to be heard, and it is best for you to say for your mental and emotional health, then focus on that. Focus on that. And if someone is trying to put the topic back onto themselves and make themselves the victim so you can feel sorry for them, and really it's a way of deflecting, and so that way you can get off topic, again, bring that conversation back in and let them know, say, "Hey, I came to you about this. If you wanted me to hear you out about this, this, and this, there are many opportunities for you to do so, and there will be opportunities for you to do so. But now is not the time for you to do so. I'm speaking about this, this, and this." Okay? All right, the next thing you can do is simply revisit the conversation later. If someone isn't taking what you have to say well, this is someone that you care about, someone that holds a certain place in your life that you value and respect, and maybe the conversation starts not going well. Something that I do is I say, "Hey, clearly right now is not a good time. I really want to talk to you when we both can really take in what we have to say with understanding. So how about this? How about we just put it on pause, take a time out, and we revisit it later?" And hopefully they're open to doing so. A lot of times with the people that I've told this to, they were very much open in doing so. And it let me know that this is someone who values me and cares about me as well, which I appreciate. And that's something else that you can do, is just put it on pause and just say, "Hey, let's revisit this later." Okay. And what that does is that gives that person the time to maybe, to reflect on some things and think about their initial reaction to you and say, "Oh, okay, maybe I'm tripping a little bit." And then when you guys do come back together, they'll come back with a different disposition, a better disposition. All right. And all right, so to wrap this thing up, some of the consequences are we lose friendships and relationships. Going back to what I said, people misinterpret what we say. They don't give us the benefit of the doubt. We can even be labeled as disrespectful, aggressive, sensitive, or dramatic. I've had that happen. We're dismissed. We realize people don't care how we feel, and we're left to cope with the effects of being misunderstood or dismissed or not fully heard. Now, I get that all of these things are difficult and it doesn't feel good. But I want you to ask yourself this. Are When you are silent and you hold it in, do you feel better than if you would just express yourself and deal with some of the consequences? What I had to work on is building my resilience and strengthening um, just strengthening myself, strengthening my mindset and my emotions, and definitely strengthening my emotional intelligence and seeing it for what it is. It's like my family says, consider the source. And what that means is looking at things objectively and seeing like, okay, this person is reacting like this because maybe they're insecure, maybe I've triggered them. Um, maybe they are intimidated by what I have to say, all of those things, right? When I built my resilience and I strengthened my mindset and my uh, just strengthen myself as a whole and strengthen my emotional intelligence, that has really helped me in this whole speaking up for myself and owning my truth. Because now, when I am met with some of these consequences, does it sting a little bit? It does, but it doesn't affect me or impact me the way that it has in the past, because now I'm putting things into perspective. I'm looking at things objectively. And a lot of times I can see, oh, okay, you're taking me like this because of this. Or, you know, this is offending you because of this. And that's what can I do about it? But what I do know is this: I'm not the problem. You're not the problem. So, something that can be very beneficial to you, which I encourage you to do, is to strengthen your resilience, develop your emotional intelligence, meaning understanding people, why their reactions and actions and their emotions, emotional reactions to us. That is so helpful, and there's all kinds of information out there for that. All right. But I'm going to end it with this again. You have the right to be heard, and you have something to say. So own your truth and speak up for yourself, okay? As always, I hope that this has blessed you, has resonated with you. I wanted to let you ladies know that I have created polls in my YouTube post tab in my channel. And it's really to get some insight, because I want to know what topics interest you guys, because I'm here to serve y'all. So I did create a poll. So give me your feedback. I would greatly appreciate it if you would, please. And until next time, make it a great, awesome week and love yourself.